So one of these things I keep talking about is what is cash. And it probably isn't what you think it is. I mean, there's cash like their $20 bill. But really, it's only what it's worth in purchasing. Can you buy 4 loaves of bread with it? Now, if today you can buy 4 loaves of bread, but tomorrow you can buy 3 loaves of bread, you can look at this, that the price of the bread went up or the price of the value of the cash went down. One of those two, either one. That's what we call inflation. And I'm old enough that I remember when it ran 20% per year in the United States. That is not horribly high. There are other countries that have seen, 20% per hour inflation. And how do you get inflation? Well, it's a question of supply and demand, I think, by and large. If you increase the supply of money, you decrease the value. And why would you increase the supply of money? That's the question. Well, because you're a government and you can either tax the people if you want to have more money, or you can just create more from nowhere. And if you create more, then either the value of the money is going down or the cost of goods is going up. When you have more money chasing fewer goods, you have inflation. Now, in our banking system, it's not just the government that can create money. And let's be really serious. Cash, as in $20 bills with pretty pictures on it of dead people, is not the only kind of cash. Let's say that for that house you go in and you borrow $100,000. This is a cheap house, man. $100,000 for a house. Now, the bank approves your loan, and yes, what do you do with this check that you get from the bank? Well, they say you're good for it, so what do? You immediately deposit it right back into the bank. Okay? And now they have $100,000 as an asset. And the way banking regulations, fractional banking regulations work is whatever their assets, they can lend about 7 times their assets, which means the instant you deposit that, they can now lend $700,000. So they go off and they lend a few other people some money. And what do they do with the money when they lend it? Well, golly, they deposit it mostly right back into the bank. And consequently, they can multiply their money because they have this weird system of accounting that says that, yes, I can lend against my assets. And well, he deposited $100,000. I mean, I can lend more than that. I have a fractional reserve banking system. This is not the only banking system in existence. Here in Wyoming, we have a bank called Avanti that has been formed that is a 100% reserve bank that does some of the things that banks do, like protect your money and do things with your money and allow you to spend it, but you have to deposit 100% of what you're going to use. And you go, why would you want that? Well, if you want a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency bank, Avanti is the people to go to. And it works on a 100% reserve instead of a small percentage reserve. Now, we went to a percentage reserve system because we had a crisis in the United States where banks defaulted in the 1930s. And to get around this default problem and guarantee that people wouldn't lose their money in the bank, they have insurance. You've probably seen Fdic on the door of your bank. That's Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And it is a sort of semi-private corporation that if the bank goes under, they will pay you out now $250,000, up to that amount. Now, one of the things you should realize about this insurance is if you have more than that amount of money and the bank goes under, you just lose it. This is the maximum that they will pay. So I know a guy out in California, Olaf. He ran a plumbing company. His weekly payroll in his plumbing company, it was a pretty prosperous thing, before the bank went under, was running about $3 million a week. The bank went under, poof! A few months later, Fdic paid him out. At the time, $100,000 was the maximum. They paid him out $100,000. Today, it's $250,000. But the other millions just went away. They were gone. So this insurance here is to keep people's confidence, but there's plenty of cases where you don't want to do that, or you want to look at the risk of the bank itself going under and say, by golly, I don't trust that bank. I want a different bank that I trust more. So what is this $100,000? I mean, they don't hand you a bag full of money. They hand you a check, and it has an account number on it. And that's all you ever see of the money. The money isn't even real. I mean, suddenly there was more of it and they lent it out. Where did it come from? Realistically, most cash, not the $20 bill, but most cash is simply a number that is a mutable number in an account in a bank. It's just fake. It doesn't really exist. There's no instantiation of it beyond, here, this account has 100,000 in it. Okay? This is most money today. This is what cash is numbers in computers. Now, some people see a future in which we go completely digital and we no longer have paper currency, or like in Canada, plastic currency. There's some resistance to that for privacy concerns. And, some people want to have some privacy, especially if they do something like want to pay somebody for something that isn't socially approved. Their mistress, okay, would be a good example. So there's some resistance to getting rid of cash currency. But realistically, there are a lot of reasons to get rid of cash currency, and some places have done it. There's a little island group that mostly they do tourism, and they went to a all blockchain currency system, which is of advantage to their residents. It's advantage to people that come and visit these islands, because when they come and visit, if they forget to convert their money, I've got $30 worth of dollars, 30 Canadian dollars worth of cash downstairs. It isn't even worth me taking it to a bank and trying to convert it back to US dollars, because the exchange rate and the costs are too much to make it worthwhile. But if you leave that little country, since everything is crypto there, when you leave, you can simply go on your phone on an app and go click, 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 and convert it back to US dollars. So there are reasons for wanting to be able to get rid of paper currency. And also, paper currency is expensive. The United States loses money on dollar bills and pennies because they wear out. So, there is friction and there is cost. This is not free to have, people carrying it around. Also, one of those great mysteries is you pick up a Canadian bill and up in the corner there's Braille for a blind person to be able to tell what it is. I don't know how the United States manages to ignore its own laws about disability, and we have all of the currency the same size with no imprints for somebody that's blind to be able to use it. They can't tell a 5 from a $100 bill. So this is what cash is. And this is what inflation is. Now, the United States has a tremendous incentive not to have too much inflation because they've borrowed lots of money. And they don't pay much interest on it. If inflation goes up, their interest payments will go up. So their monetary policy tends to keep inflation down. Now, the opposite of inflation, it's the in part, is deflation. And deflation is really bad and ugly, and there are reasons why you would think that an economy would have deflation. When I was growing up in high school, yes, I bought a nice stereo system, and it's got speakers and all these components, and I had a stack of albums there beside my stereo system, and it was expensive, and I bought it, and I still have it to this day. I still use it all these years later, but that was, say, $2,000. Then, in US dollars today, that would be more like $4,000. Today, I do the same thing on my iPhone. It's a little tiny device, and I have 5 times, 10 times, 20 times as much music to listen to. And what proportion of my iPhone is this? A small portion. I'm a cheap iPhone user. I paid $250 for the iPhone. It is not a fancy iPhone. So this is deflationary pressure, and not only does it not $4,000, but I can take it with me, I can take it in the car, and it has maps on it, and it's a phone, and about 50 other things. So there is this constant pressure of technology driving down the price of a lot of things. How many things in our economy is technology not driving the price down on? And the answer is very few. Cars, education, as in college, you're involved in one of those, and houses. If you go looking out through the economy, there are very few things that are in that category that are products, and there is a service. Medical services. And those things, the price has stayed the same, cars, or actually gone up. Education is increasing, cars is roughly about the same over time, houses are increasing, and medical is increasing. Okay? If you compare a washing machine today to one that was built 30 years ago, first of all, we do a better job designing it, so it takes fewer natural resources. A washing machine 30 years ago weighs way more than one today because it uses more materials. Is it as reliable? Will it last as long? Well, no. The statistics show that today's washing machines last about 90% of the length of time as a 1970s washing machine. Do they do more things? Oh yeah, they do a whole bunch more things. So the utility has increased, the price has decreased substantially. And in 1978, if you bought a washing machine, it was about $380. In inflated dollars today, you're looking at about a $700 washing machine. And I can go buy a brand new washing machine at Lowe's or something like that for about $290 today. Okay, that's comparable to this $381. It would be a very low-end washing machine. So it is way down in price. The same is by and large true for refrigerators and toasters and all sorts of stuff. These are the things that have kept up in price. So most of these things are decreasing, and that's deflation, as opposed to a few things that are increasing or staying the same. Cars have managed to stay the same because they have way more features. I mean, I can sit in the driver's side and I can open and close the window with the push of a button on the other side, as well as safety features. So, houses have gotten bigger. Okay, today we buy McMansions instead of little tiny houses, and we finance it for 30 years instead of 5. Education. Lots of reasons why education has increased in price. Has it increased in value? Oh, that's a tough one to analyze. Maybe, maybe not. And medical. Medical is kind of sad, as far as I'm concerned, because we pay way more than everyone else in the world. I mean, we pay twice as much as what France does, and they have longer lifespans than us. Our lifespans are more comparable to countries like Chile and India. We're pretty close to. But you take Chile or Turkey. There's another one. If you look at in terms of lifespans, we're right between Chile and Turkey. And Chile spends about $1,100 per person per year, and Turkey spends about $1,200 in US dollars. We spend $17,000 per person per year. So I think that's really, really sad, really bad. That's a problem. So yeah, but these are the things that are driving up prices. These are the things that are coming down, and most of them are coming down. So that is inflation and deflation. Deflation is really bad because if you have a deflationary economy, it becomes valuable to just hoard money. And when you hoard money, you don't invest it, which doesn't make the economy grow. And we've seen that in other countries. Japan has a lost decade of deflation where they saw that happen. Whereas a small amount of inflation is generally pretty good. It gives you an incentive to take the money and invest it, but it doesn't upset prices so much that it becomes difficult to handle. High rates of inflation tend to be pretty bad. Things that maintain value when there are high rates of inflation are like stocks, because you're buying the future value of a company. And consequently, since that future value will also be inflated, the future value doesn't get impacted by inflation. And we've seen that in a lot of countries that have had very high rates of inflation. Stocks maintain their real dollar value, their real asset value through inflation and continue to grow. So that's kind of the picture of what cash is. And some of the limitations on things like Fdic. So the Avante Bank, since it's not a fractional reserve bank, is not insured by Fdic. But then it doesn't make money out of thin air either. It doesn't lend money that you don't actually have in the bank. So since their reserves are 100%, there's no risk to insure against, and it doesn't need Fdic insurance.